You think you've seen hot? Think again. These 10 gay men from South Korea aren't just attractive, they're icons. Bold, beautiful, and unapologetically themselves, they've turned up the heat in K-pop, dramas, fashion, and beyond. From public confessions to silent strength, their stories will leave you breathless. And guess what? You'll only find them right here on LGBTQ+ Vibes. In the glossy world of K-pop, where image is everything and conformity is king, one artist dared to defy the mold. His name? MRSHLL, born Marshall Bain in Orange County, California. With soulful vocals, piercing vulnerability, and an unwavering sense of identity, he became the first openly gay K-pop singer in a world that wasn't ready for him, but desperately needed him. Raised in a conservative Korean-American household, Marshall first found his voice in church gospel choirs, long before stepping onto a public stage. Music for him wasn't a career move, it was survival. After coming out to close friends and family in his early 20s, he made the bold decision to move to South Korea, not for fame, but for freedom. In 2015, when he made his debut on a hip-hop track, he didn't slip in quietly. He arrived as himself, fully, honestly, and in doing so, rewrote the rules. His presence was met with both applause and backlash, but MRSHLL refused to shrink. He kept singing, kept showing up, kept shining. His solo EP Breathe wasn't just a debut, it was a declaration. With tracks like Circle and Pose, MRSHLL gave listeners a mirror, a raw, vulnerable reflection of queer identity in an industry obsessed with polish and perfection. Blending K-pop with R&B, soul, and a deep emotional current, his music cut through, not just sonically but spiritually. Fans from around the world, especially LGBTQ+ youth, found refuge in his lyrics, healing in his visibility, and hope in his resilience. But MRSHLL wasn't interested in being a novelty. He collaborated with indie artists, performed at Pride festivals, and used his voice to elevate more than just music. In 2020, he dropped Alive with Sumin, a silky synth-laced track that pulsed with quiet strength. 2 years later, Mirage arrived, a bold fusion of Korean folk textures and neo-soul. And once again, he pushed boundaries gracefully. While Korean television avoided him, queer youth embraced him. And that was always who he was singing for. Despite global praise, life in Korea has never been easy for MRSHLL. He's spoken openly about being rejected by labels, being denied screen time, and navigating an industry still terrified of honesty. But he never asked for pity, just a place to exist. And he's made that place sacred. His music videos explore intimacy, isolation, and queer joy. His interviews radiate humility and power, reminding us all, being different isn't a flaw, it's a gift. As of 2025, MRSHLL remains one of the only openly gay men in K-pop, but he no longer stands alone. Others are walking through the doors he helped crack open. And while his legacy may not lie in awards or chart positions, it lives in whispers, messages, tears, and cheers. In the boy who came out to Breathe, in the drag queen who lip-synced to Pose, in the thousands who saw themselves clearly for the first time. MRSHLL didn't just make music, he made space. And in doing so, he gave voice to a generation that refused to be silent. In the curated world of Instagram, where beauty is the currency and identity is crafted in pixels, one name continues to captivate without saying a single word: Jongmin. With sharp features, a sculpted jawline, and a presence that radiates both elegance and edge, he's become one of South Korea's most followed fashion influencers. His grid isn't just a collection of pretty pictures, it's a lifestyle. From mirror selfies with perfect lighting, to street-style shots in Seoul's trendiest districts, to quiet cafe moments that feel cinematic, every post is deliberate, every glance curated. Yet behind that aesthetic perfection lies a mystique that keeps fans returning again and again. Jongmin never explains himself. He doesn't label, he doesn't correct rumors, he simply exists, unapologetically, beautifully. While his bio reads like that of any modern influencer, model, traveler, tastemaker, Jangmin's quiet impact goes far beyond likes and shares. Within the LGBTQ+ community in Korea and across Asia, he's become something of a soft icon. Not because he's said anything, but because his silence speaks volumes. In a society where coming out can still mean career suicide, Jangmin's curated ambiguity has allowed him to walk a tightrope with grace. His fashion choices challenge norms. One day, it's a masculine streetwear ensemble. The next day, it's soft silk and painted nails. He embraces both sides, blurs every line, and does it all without explanation. That quiet defiance, it resonates. For many young queer Koreans scrolling their feeds late at night, unsure of who they are or how to be, Jangmin's page feels like a safe place, even without a single word about identity. Still, questions linger, as they always do with beautiful men who don't conform. Is he gay? Is he bi? Is he just fashion-forward in private? The truth is, it doesn't matter. What matters is the way he shows up. The way he's carved out a space for himself, without compromise. In 2023, his popularity surged internationally after a viral TikTok featuring his street fashion looks reached over 2 million views in less than 48 hours. Since then, he's been featured in queer fashion editorials across Southeast Asia and has attended Pride-themed events, not as a speaker or activist, but as himself. Always calm, always controlled, always stunning. And maybe that's the power of Jangmin. He doesn't need to come out to be a symbol. His beauty is undeniable, his silence intentional, and in that space between what's shown and what's left unsaid, he's already said enough. Before the headlines, before the controversy, there was just a boy who wanted to sing about love. Born Go-tae-seob in South Korea, Holland never fit the mold of what a K-pop idol was supposed to be. He didn't come from a major entertainment label. He wasn't backed by millions in promotional money. And most of all, he wasn't willing to hide. In a country where LGBTQ+ visibility was almost non-existent in mainstream music, Holland took a step that no one else had. And he did it loudly. In January 2018, he released his debut single Neverland, a soft, dreamy pop track about two boys falling in love. The music video? A tender, unashamed portrayal of gay romance. No metaphors, no coded gestures, just truth. It was beautiful, it was groundbreaking, and it was real. The world noticed, and so did Korea. Within hours, Neverland had gone viral, not because it was backed by a label, but because it was brave. The video racked up over 1 million views in days, and fans from around the globe flooded his socials with love, gratitude, and stories of their own. For so many queer youth, especially in Asia, Holland became more than a singer. He became proof that it was possible to live honestly and still be heard. But with the praise came the backlash. The video was age-restricted in Korea, his debut was met with silence from major networks, and no label dared to sign him. Yet Holland didn't flinch. He kept creating, he kept performing, he kept loving out loud. His name, Holland, wasn't just a nod to the first country to legalize same-sex marriage, it was a mission statement. Over the years, Holland has released a series of singles and EPs, each more confident and unfiltered than the last. Tracks like I'm Not Afraid, Loved You Better, and Narcy explored queer longing, heartbreak, defiance, and healing. His aesthetic, bold, glittering, and androgynous, pushed the boundaries of K-pop's rigid masculinity. But more than anything, it was his authenticity that made him unforgettable. In interviews, he speaks gently but firmly about identity, mental health, and the cost of being out in an industry built on illusion. He's not just an artist, he's an advocate. And in 2025, as conversations about queer representation continue to expand in Korean media, one truth remains clear. Holland opened the door. Not just for himself, but for everyone who dreamed of loving without fear and singing without shame. The lights dimmed, the crowd roared, and Bain stood there, breath held, heart racing, 1,000 voices chanting his name. It was supposed to be just another concert stop on his world tour, a night of music and movement under the California sky. But on that April night in Los Angeles, 2025, something shifted. After the final song, Bain took the mic and took a risk. With trembling honesty, he looked out at his fans and said the words that would echo far beyond the arena walls. I'm gay, and I'm proud. The stadium fell silent, then erupted. In that moment, Bain didn't just finish a show. He made history. Not as a rebel, not as a statement, but as a human being finally choosing to breathe out after years of holding it all in. Born Song Byung-hee in Seoul, Bain had always felt like his life moved in two directions. One was perfectly choreographed, rising through the ranks of training programs, debuting with the K-pop group Just B, earning adoring fans with his electrifying stage presence and expressive eyes. The other was hidden, buried under layers of fear, industry pressure, and cultural silence. For years, Bain danced through his career with precision, while privately navigating the emotional weight of living in secret. But he never let it harden him. If anything, it made him more attuned to his music, his fans, and the quiet ache that lingers in every unspoken truth. When whispers started to swirl online about his orientation, he didn't respond. He waited, not out of shame, but because he wanted to speak on his own terms. That night in Los Angeles wasn't about a confession. It was a celebration. Bain's fans didn't just applaud. They cried, screamed, held up signs that read, "Thank you for being you." And the industry, once hesitant, couldn't ignore him anymore. He was still the same artist, only now fully seen. In the weeks that followed, interviews, documentaries, and think pieces poured in. But Bain didn't try to lead a movement or make himself a symbol. He kept it simple. He showed up to rehearsals. He kept recording. And in every lyric that followed, there was a new lightness. A freedom he'd fought for quietly and finally claimed. In a world where timing is everything, Bain chose the exact right moment to come out. Not when the industry allowed it, but when his heart did. And that made all the difference. He didn't come out. He didn't have to. Park Jae-chan didn't make headlines with a confession or a press release. What he did was even bolder. He told a love story and meant every second of it. In 2022, the K-pop world stood still when Jae-chan, a rising idol from the group DKZ, took on the lead role in Semantic Error, a campus-set BL boys' love drama that would become a cultural flashpoint across South Korea. The plot was simple. Two college boys, clashing personalities, undeniable chemistry, slow-burn romance. But the impact? Massive. For millions of fans, queer and straight, it wasn't just another drama. It was the first time they saw a male idol embrace queer intimacy on screen, and do it with complete sincerity. There were no camera shies, no forced distance, no homo disclaimers, just longing glances, hesitant touches, and something that felt like truth. Park Jae-chan wasn't just acting. He was living through something much bigger than a script. Before Semantic Error, he was mostly known as the charming vocalist of DKZ, fresh-faced, sweet-smiled, with a playful stage presence and an endearing awkwardness in interviews. But this role transformed him. Overnight, he became a symbol. Not for what he said, but for what he dared to show. Scenes from the show went viral. Fans rewatched every moment, every line delivery, searching for the feeling behind the fiction. His on-screen chemistry with co-star Park So-ham wasn't just convincing, it was magnetic. And though neither actor confirmed anything about their personal lives, the silence only deepened the resonance. Queer audiences didn't need confirmation. They saw themselves in Jae-chan's eyes, in the way his voice trembled, in the way he reached out and pulled away, then reached again. Since then, Jae-chan has walked a fascinating line. He's never publicly addressed his own sexuality, and maybe he never will. But his choices speak volumes. He's continued to support queer content, appeared in interviews with LGBTQ+ platforms, and has remained gracious and open toward his queer fan base. On stage, he's still the same, energetic, humble, quick to smile. But there's a quiet confidence now, a deeper presence. As of 2025, Semantic Error remains one of the most beloved queer dramas in K-pop history, and Park Jae-chan, its heart. Whether he's gay, bi, straight, or somewhere beyond the labels, doesn't matter. What matters is what he gave: a story, a performance, a window. And for so many young people watching from behind screens in silence, that window looked a lot like freedom. Some actors perform. Others disappear into their roles. And then there's Han Gi-chan, the kind who doesn't just portray emotion, he becomes it. When Where Your Eyes Linger premiered in 2020, no one quite expected the cultural tremor it would cause. A quiet, 8-episode web drama, barely promoted, made on a modest budget, and yet, it made history. As South Korea's first mainstream BL boys' love series, it took a gamble on soft, queer storytelling in a landscape that rarely dared to speak its name. At the heart of it stood Han Gi-chan, not shouting, not grandstanding, just looking, feeling, waiting. His portrayal of Kang-guk, stoic, guarded, achingly devoted, made waves far beyond fandom. It gave queer Koreans something they'd rarely seen, themselves, not in tragedy, but in tenderness. Han wasn't new to the spotlight. A former contestant on the idol survival show Produce X 101, he had the charm, the face, the fan base. But it was his work in Where Your Eyes Linger that turned him from an idol trainee into an actor of depth. His chemistry with co-star Jang Eun-woo was electric, but never performative. The silences between them spoke louder than dialogue. Viewers fell in love with the way he averted his gaze, the way his voice cracked mid-line, the way his character crumbled, not from rejection, but from hope. And still, through it all, Han Gi-chan said nothing about himself. No labels, no statements, just the work. And somehow that restraint only deepened his impact. In the queer community, he became something rare, a vessel for unspoken truths. Fast forward to 2025. Han returns to queer storytelling with The Wedding Banquet, a reimagined Korean adaptation of Ang Lee's 1993 classic. This time, the stakes are higher. The character is older, the pain is sharper, but Han? He's luminous, grounded, better than ever. Still, his personal life remains private. Fans speculate, headlines suggest, but Han never plays into it. He lets the audience feel what they feel and leaves the rest unsaid. And maybe that's why he matters so much. Because in a world of declarations, his quiet presence becomes its own kind of power. He doesn't have to be out to be seen. He doesn't have to explain to be understood. He simply chooses roles that open hearts. And that choice, again and again, feels revolutionary. Not because it shouts, but because it whispers something true. They call him face genius in Korea, a phrase reserved for only the most striking visuals in K-pop. And with one glance at Cha Eun-woo, all sharp cheekbones, dewy skin, and disarmingly gentle eyes, it's easy to see why. But beyond the surface, behind the perfect symmetry and red carpet smiles, lies a mystery the public can't quite solve. As a member of the boy group Astro, Lee Dong-min, his birth name, has captivated millions since debuting in 2016. He sings, he acts, he models, and yet for all his visibility, Eun-woo has kept one thing completely, fiercely private: himself. He doesn't speak of dating, he sidesteps gossip, and when it comes to his personal life, especially his sexuality, he stays silent. Not in denial, not in shame, just quiet. Over the years, fans and tabloids have read between the lines, tracking friendships, analyzing gestures, dissecting interview answers. But Eun-woo, always calm, always composed, never takes the bait. His on-screen personas, whether the stoic genius in True Beauty or the heartbroken prince in Rookie Historian Gu Hae-young, are romantic, complex, often yearning. But the real Eun-woo, he gives you just enough to admire, and nothing more. Some see this guardedness as strategy, a way to protect his image in a conservative industry. Others see it as survival, the kind that many closeted celebrities quietly master. But maybe it's something simpler. A man trying to hold on to a piece of his soul in a business that sells everything. Still, his presence in queer spaces hasn't gone unnoticed. Within the LGBTQ+ community, both in Korea and abroad, Eun-woo has become a kind of silent icon, not for what he said, but for what he represents. A man who doesn't perform masculinity the way others expect, who shows softness without irony, who looks at his co-stars, male or female, with an intimacy that feels unfiltered. In fan fiction, he's the muse. In fashion, he's the muse. And in thousands of late-night conversations among queer fans, he's the dream. Not because he's perfect, but because he doesn't pretend to be anything he's not. As of 2025, Cha Eun-woo remains an enigma. Stunning, talented, unbothered by the world's curiosity. And maybe that's his quiet rebellion. To be everything and say nothing. to exist fully in the spotlight and still belong only to himself. Some men walk into a room. Kim Ho-young floats. With every step, every gesture, he brings theater with him, the kind of presence that refuses to be ignored. Born on February 19, 1983, Kim rose to fame not through flashy pop hits or viral fame, but on the grand, echoing stages of Korean musical theater. There, he built a career on range, both vocally and emotionally, from the tragic to the flamboyant, the noble to the outrageous. His performances earned him acclaim and a fiercely loyal fan base. But what truly set Kim Ho-young apart wasn't just talent, it was truth. In a country still learning how to embrace queer visibility, he did the unthinkable for a mainstream entertainer. In 2020, Kim publicly came out as gay. There was no dramatic press conference, no orchestrated PR campaign, just honesty, woven into interviews, hinted through fashion, confirmed with grace. Kim didn't just reveal who he was, he celebrated it, loudly, proudly, fearlessly. And in doing so, he became something rare in Korean entertainment, an openly gay performer, thriving in the spotlight. His fashion? Unapologetically bold. Sometimes androgynous, always expressive. He wore sequins on red carpets, strutted in heels on variety shows, turned every appearance into a stage of its own. But it wasn't about shock, it was about freedom. About saying, "This is me, deal with it." And people did more than deal with it. They applauded. Beyond the stage, Kim became a vibrant voice for the LGBTQ+ community in Korea, not just through representation, but through action. He's spoken publicly about the need for acceptance, pushed back against toxic masculinity, and supported queer artists just beginning their journey. Whether hosting talk shows, judging talent competitions, or headlining musicals like Hedwig and the Angry Inch, his presence sends a message: being true to yourself is the ultimate performance. As of 2025, Kim Ho-young remains a beloved figure, not in spite of his identity, but because of the way he's owned it. He's campy, classy, theatrical, and fearless. And in every bow, every laugh, every glittering outfit, he reminds us, pride isn't always a protest. Sometimes, it's a showstopper. These 10 men didn't just turn heads, they turned tides. In a world that often asked them to stay silent, they chose to shine louder, love harder, and live bolder. From the stage to the screen, they redefined what it means to be both gay and powerful in Korean pop culture. So tell us, which one inspired you most? Hit that like button, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Pride never looked this good.